Welcome to the Procurement Software Podcast, where we aim to educate and inspire you about how technology is changing and shaping our profession. The truth is, there's never been a more exciting time to be in procurement, but only if you're one of those organizations that's embracing the change and driving new developments. And this podcast is all about giving you the tools to help you get there. So buckle up and let's get right into this week's show. Yes, hello, very warm welcome to another episode of the Procurement Software Podcast. This one is actually our penultimate episode of the year. And I'm joined again today by a great guest. And we're going to be talking about something a little bit off-piste to what we normally cover on the show. But I think it's really relevant, especially to anyone that's recently been to any conferences or events. So I had the pleasure to be a speaker and an attendee at Apadua's recent Indirect Procurement Days conference or mini event in Frankfurt. So I wanted to invite on one of Apadua's co-founders to talk a little bit about the event because I had a great experience there. And I really think these could be the future of marketing, both for solution providers in terms of being able to engage more with their potential customers, but also for attendees to be able to network better than at some of the bigger events. So Gregory Vider, co-founder and CEO of Apadua, very warm welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, James. Really appreciate it.
So, Gregory, before we dig into this week's topic, I just want to ask you the question that I ask everyone that comes onto the show as a bit of an icebreaker. So, let's imagine that you've just got a role as a head of procurement at a mid-market business, and by way of a miracle, your CFO has given you $50,000 to go out and spend on some procurement tech. How would you approach that, and what would you go and spend it on?
I would spend it on Apadua and buy the Apadua solution for a year and get an ROI of 3 months, which is rarely to be done with any other thing that a CPO can do within his first 100 days. And with the money that's coming in, I can hire more good people, get more great AI tools in place, and hopefully get a good Christmas party going.
At least it's an honest answer. So on that note then, before we dive into the whole micro events topic, just to give a little bit of context, because you said that your customers usually see ROI within 3 months. Just give a brief overview of what Apadua's product does for anyone that's perhaps not come across you before. And then we'll dive in a little bit to the event and the objectives and how you came up with the idea.
Yeah, so Apadua does offer a productivity and collaboration platform for professional services buyers. That means that we enable the buyers to approach their internal customers early and get involved early themselves and 10x their value contribution to their internal organization. We do that by providing a platform that's open to not only procurement professionals, but most importantly, non-procurement professionals. So our user population today is 1 in 30 users only is a procurement professional. All the other 29 users are actually their internal clients, which makes it much different than all the other monolithic procurement solutions that are only used by procurement and that you need a week to train for to just change your password or something, right? And obviously, we've been on the AI train, or we are on the AI train, but however, we've been on the AI train since late 2014. So we help our clients, regardless whether they're procurement professionals or the internal customers of procurement, to specify their demand, find the right vendors for that specific demand. We guide them through the tendering process and help them make better and more informed decisions when engaging with vendors.
Got it. So very much a point solution for professional services. So very much niche focused on that specific as an area of spend. But the standout feature essentially is that most of the users on the platform are not procurement. And the way that it's designed is to facilitate the ease of use, to be able to onboard both suppliers and internal stakeholders to collaborate within the same tool.
Yes, with one correction here. At this point, we learn more and more about our clients, which have now started, without asking them to use the tool also for other services outside of the professional services realm. Right? So our clients have started to use Apadua now for something that it hasn't been designed for, which is buying sprinkler systems, MRO, fleet services. Right? So we learn more and more about ourselves with every new tender a client runs. And we are amazed by how similar all these sourcing events are from a grand scheme of things, if you will, right? And that speaks to the uniqueness of services, so non-tangible stuff to buy, right? Because you have a different way of specifying services. Usually these services, or a lot of services, are non-recurring. And you have different internal clients, which makes it even more necessary to be able to engage with these clients and get them on board early. Otherwise, the train has left the station before procurement got on board, right? And that actually, at the moment, makes our niche product a little bit less nichey, but it's still in the services realm.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I spent several years actually buying CapEx and MRO. And you raised a very good point there, that one of the biggest challenges around MRO is you just have so many stakeholders within the business, because it affects pretty much every part of the production process. And also buildings maintenance as well, if you consider sort of FM has MRO spend too. So that and capital projects do have very, very similar pain points to what you mentioned on services, that as you alluded to, it's non-repeatable spend oftentimes, but it's also impossible sometimes to track purchase price variance and hard savings because you don't have anything historical to relate it to. And often, especially on MRO, the price is not the driving factor. It's all around transactional efficiency and security of supply and all of the other things that procurement often doesn't get the credit for. But yeah, I can see how they could be very relevant to a similar type of platform. Yeah, 100%. Okay, cool. So that's a great bit of background just to get a bit of context to this. So you contacted me probably around about May time this year with this crazy idea that you got to put on a micro event in an old villa on the outskirts of Frankfurt in Germany, and were asking for a bit of feedback and whether I'd be interested. And I'm curious, what got you to that part of the journey? What made you wake up one morning after you'd walked the dog or been to the gym and thought, I want to do a micro event at a nice old villa and invite lots of cool people to it?
I'm a very spontaneous guy, right? So I like to have an idea and just bounce it around immediately and get working on this idea. Sometimes these ideas just don't materialize and I just let them go after an hour of thought. But sometimes I can dig myself into a hole there, and that's what I've done here, right? So we've done early 2024. We did our annual planning of the events that we are going to attend. And I had in front of me all these offers from these different event providers and 5-digit or 5-figure amounts that they take for a booth, for sponsorship, for being on stage or whatever. And I've been around for a couple of years now, and I've been to a couple of these events, and we've spent a couple $1,000 each year on these events. And I thought to myself, okay, is this the right or the best way I can spend that money, right? And I thought to myself, no, that's not the best way to do it, because I don't have a lot of control over what's happening on these events. I can design the back wall of my booth, but that's about it, right? And if I want to be a speaker, if I want to bring a client, if I want to put my sticker on the beer at night, whatever, they charge for everything. And especially on who's at the event, what we're going to focus on, how we're gonna run things, I don't have any control over that. And that's the reason why I said, okay, let's take another approach here. So I went to my team and confronted them with this crazy idea that boss had another time, right? And I said, okay, listen, this is what I want to do. Any ideas? It has to be special. And I think I know a place where I want to do this. Have a look. And the Villa Rothschild in Königstein came to me because I spent a couple times and nights there, mainly for my wedding anniversaries or similar events. And I knew the venue and I knew it was cool. I knew it was not the usual setting that you will find in these bigger conferences. And I think a week after I had the initial idea, I just drove there, made an appointment with the manager and said, okay, let's have a look. How could we do this? And the secret is I owed my wife a timeout, right? So I took my wife along. So we went for lunch. We didn't spend the night. I told her, let's have lunch. I want to have a look at something and then come back to Cologne. And she said, yes. So, two birds, one stone kind of thing. And I thought, okay, this is awesome. And I like the venue. I like the restaurant with a fireplace in the middle. So, okay, this is going to be awesome. And by the way, we're not going to use any screens. We're just going to have this without screens, without displays, because then we have this fireplace situation. And I talked to the manager of the hotel and he said, okay, you seem like a guy that is into non-conventional stuff. I said, okay. And he said, you want to see our kitchen? Why the hell not, right? So he took me downstairs to the kitchen and I met the chef de cuisine and he was awesome. That guy was really cool. And he dimmed the lights and then he pressed a button and then he had this disco lights in the ceiling that were installed there. And he said, you want to do a kitchen party? I said, of course I want. I do, right? So, and that's how the idea of the kitchen party got started, right? And the kitchen party thing was really what also hooked me on this location because I said, I'm only going to go to a location where I can have a kitchen party. So this is a very long answer to a very simple question. But that's how it all started, right? So I'm in the beginning of this year, which me just being set up, paying a lot of money for events that I still go to, but I'm not going to spend 5 figures on an event I don't have any control over.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's for me what really made the event, because one of the things when you have dinner at some of these events, if you're sat on a table and you just happen to be sat next to or opposite people that you don't have much in common with, or that are maybe quite introverted and not very conversational, that can be quite an awkward 2 hours. But the way that that's set up with the kitchen party, it's great because if there were people that wanted to go to bed a little bit earlier or that didn't want to socialize, they could do that. But I loved how they were just bringing around tapas style plates. So you weren't having to wait for food. You weren't having to wait for drinks because you could pour your own wine, or there were waiters coming around with bottles of beer. And that was really, really cool to enable the networking that perhaps you don't get to the same extent at other events. And I think to give credit to Matthias and DPW, they've really nailed the whole unconventional thing as well. And the best compliment I could give you guys actually was that it felt like a bit of a mini DPW in the way that it was set up and some of the little features and thoughts behind it, because that with the fireplace and the no PowerPoint rule, I think also worked really, really well in that people were more engaged with the speaker and it made the speaker perhaps concentrate a bit more on their storytelling ability rather than just reverting back to script on the slides. So I think all of that worked really, really well. I guess the big question is, did it give you what you expected or anticipated in terms of the buzz and the vibe and the attendees and what you wanted to get out of it as a company? I mean, it's too early to say will it convert customers. I know that. But in terms of your and your team's expectations from the event.
Yes, it did. Right. So the short answer is yes, it met my expectations. It actually exceeded my expectations, far exceeded my expectations. And to be fair to all the conference and fair organizers out there, be it DPW or some of the other conferences, right? There's a reason why they exist, and I will still go there, right? But my advantage is I don't need to make any money with the event, right? I'm not in the events business. I'm in the Procurement Software business. I'm selling software. So the event to me is not a product. Right. And to Matthias, it's a product, and it should be a product because otherwise he's not going to be able to to pay his people or feed his family, right? So that's all good, right? There's no hard feelings towards these other events because they've been good to us, right? And I like going there because sometimes like a high school reunion, going to these events like 2-3 times a year or something, it's great, right? But and you asked me, okay, what did it convert any customers? I don't know. Yeah, I'm obviously that's one of the things that I was hoping for. But what I was aiming at was building a community of people that know about what we do as a company, but also what Marcus and myself, but even our operations manager, Yannick, or sales manager, Duigo, or our CTO, Nick, or our vendor manager, Sarah, stand for, right? That they meet us in person, right? That they know that we are real people behind the software, right? And that how we function, because Apple, I do have an iPhone, but I have a Microsoft computer, right? I don't know anything about Apple computers, so I can't really judge whether they're better or worse than all the other computers. I just, I don't take a risk I don't change a running system, right? However, Apple has made computers emotional, right? I feel like Apple computer buyers are quite emotional about owning that piece of hardware, right? And even sometimes they're super emotional about the phones, their watches, all the other products Apple is putting out, right? But at the end of the day, it's just a piece of hardware with a little bit of software added. And it's usually a device that you work with. However, people are emotionally attached to it. So my question is, I'm selling something super boring, right? What I'm selling is SaaS B2B software. There's probably not a lot more boring stuff that you can sell. I can't even explain to my children what I do for a living, right? So because they wouldn't understand, right? So there's no emotional attachment to what we do. So my only chance for people to get emotional about what we do is providing them an awesome user experience, right? And I'm quite sure we're doing an okay job at this, right? But also to relate to the company, to the brand, to the people behind it. And that's what the event was for. I don't care whether the CPO of company XYZ is going to call me the next day to sign a contract with an ARR of 250K. I'll take the business, don't get me wrong. But what I care about, it's my company. I'm not in for the next quarter, the next half a year, the next year. My planning horizon is different. So I want people to relate to what we do. I want people to like what we do. And whenever they are ready to buy, I want them to remember Apadua has the best solution, the coolest people, and a great network of people that I can talk to get where I'm trying to go. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does 100%. I think the thing that you probably missed out from that is that head of procurement of company XYZ is also highly unlikely after going to something like that to go back and buy a competitor product. He might not buy Apadua if he doesn't have a budget or it's not a good fit or whatever, but he's highly unlikely to go out and buy a competitor product.
At least not without looking at our solution again first, right?
Right.
So, and I'm fine with competing, right? And I just want to be in the game, right? If I'm invited to bid and there are other competitors, right? That's fine. If I'm invited to compete, that's awesome, right? And I don't expect to be there by myself or sell through back channels, stuff like that, right? I think we're past this time where these things can happen, right? It sounds like the Oscar speech, right? I was just great to be considered, right? But still, it is awesome if people just remember, hey, I've heard of Apadua before, I've seen them before, I talked to someone. And if they don't buy today, they don't buy tomorrow. If they invite me to pitch in a week, hey, awesome. Next year, also great, right? So this is why I do this, and with a passion. And I also, the other people in my company do that passionately. And I think that helps as well because there's always a personal component to what we do here. We sell technology, but our users and our clients are human. And if you ask me, that will remain that way for a while. So we need to build a relationship to these humans, a personal relationship, but also build great software that they actually like to use, right? And then we can compete.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, 100%. You touched on a little bit earlier around you still want to go to some of the other events in this space. And I completely agree with you there. They're good fun to go to. And okay, some are a bit more corporate than others in terms of the vibe and the feel. And some are a bit more geared to startups rather than sort of more established, mature companies. But nonetheless, they're all a great opportunity to network and get together with other people in this space. However, do you, as a software company that historically has exhibited or sponsored these larger conferences, with some of the increases in price that we've seen, especially since the pandemic, over the past couple of years, I've definitely seen the price of these events go up. Do you still think it's, and I know it's difficult to measure, Gregory, but do you still think it's possible to get an ROI from paying for a speaker slot or having a booth at one of these events? Or is it, like you say, just a better strategy to just buy a ticket and walk the floor?
I assume there is a good ROI, otherwise people wouldn't be doing it, right? I mean, that's at least my hope when I see all these other startups going there. And they probably have they look at the cost and the expected benefits, and they have then made the decision to buy a booth, go on stage, stuff like that, right? So, I mean, the differentiating factor here as well is maybe we are a bootstrap company. We haven't raised 10 million that we can now spend, right? There's a joke in the startup ecosystem. Did you know when people raise big tickets, they have a booth or the booth gets bigger or they sponsor the bar or whatever, right? So you can tell who's really has recently funded their business with VC money, right? And good for them, right? I'm not hating on these people. They probably have their ROI calculation, and I keep my fingers crossed for them, right? And we're very friendly with a lot of startups. Some of them are bootstrapped, and some of them are VC backed, right? And some of the VC backed startups are doing amazing jobs, right? And they have booths, they have speaker slots, they bring their clients. Good for them if they convert. And for me, I'm not speaking for anybody but myself and our company here. For us, this year was a test. I think that was a great test, right? We will be at DPW next year if Matthias will still have me after this interview, and we will still go to some of the other events, right? But we're going to be as rigid in our assessment of the targeted or to be expected ROI as we were before, right? And by the way, this event, if you look at the net benefit of it, wasn't that expensive, right? Because the clients paid for it. We didn't invite a lot of clients to come there. They paid for the ticket, right? So that was not a free ride, right? And so I think if you are able to balance, because these events, I mean, I can only invite people that I already know to these events, or maybe via cold emails or some telephone or whatever I can get. I don't know. We had approximately 50 participants this time. Maybe 5 came out of nowhere outside the existing network, right? But these other 45 people, I have to meet them somewhere, right? And then these events are good places to meet these people, to make the initial contact. So the rationale for us to go to a big event doesn't have to be the same rationale for the next company.
Yeah, that's very valid, isn't it? Every company is different with their objectives and what they want to get out of it. And you do raise a very good point that if none of these events brought any benefit, then people would just buy a booth once and then never go back. But of course, we don't see that, do we? You see the same booths at the same conferences year on year. So either they've got a marketing team that can't measure ROI, or there is clearly some benefit for doing it. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. Yeah, very good point. Okay, so in what ways then do you hope that some of the deeper connections will be formed from the event, both between the attendees themselves, but also between people that I hate the word prospect, but someone that's on your sales radar that came to the event?
So, I mean, we've done some micro events before, right? Before we did this big event, right? And I left that out earlier, right? Last year we did 5 micro events. We called them Apadua Buyers Club. One in Hamburg, one in Cologne.
It was dinner and drinks, right? Yeah.
There was workshop, dinner and drinks. In Hamburg, we went to a boxing club and everybody boxed, right? In Munich, we did some recycling and we built a ship out of recycled materials. There's always something else going on, right? Networking, right? In Cologne, we did Lego Serious Play. I'm not sure whether you ever heard of that. It was quite cool as well. So we always have done things a little differently, right? And I can't really tell whether that is because we are different or that's what makes us different, but then we've already done it a little differently. And this micro event, for instance, in Hamburg, they have formed their own community out of that event. And we're not part of that community anymore, right? And a marketing guy would say, now we have to control that community. We need to post into whatever channels they have, right? I'm not a marketing guy, right? I'm just the founder of this company. And I think it's cool to have people network. And my experience in life has been, I'm not a spiritual person, but I would say I still believe in karma, right? If you do something good will come out of it. And you don't do the good because you're expecting something good, but it's just a cool thing to do. And for me, it just felt right to do these even micro events, right? With just 10, 12, 15 participants. And even this smaller event now. Because I wanted to bring people together. And I think generally speaking, it makes a lot of sense to have your satisfied customers in the same room as potential clients, right? That makes a lot of sense, right? And that's what we've done. And if they form their own community and I can be part of that community, great. If they keep talking to each other, it's also good because as long as one client of mine in that circle still, right? Guess what happens? Next time somebody says, oh, we really need a sourcing solution for services. Somebody may raise their hand, and it has happened before, right? Raised their hand and said, yeah, why don't you invite the Apadua people as well? And then we are back in the competition mode, right? What I referred to earlier. So, yeah.
I think it's genius. I'm just conscious of the time and I need to wrap this up. So I've got 2 quick fire questions, Gregory, that I want to ask you. Don't think too much about them, just whatever pops into your head. So the first one is, if you could live anywhere in the world and money or work was no object, where would it be?
Would be New Zealand or Argentina.
Good choice. Yeah.
Let me elaborate. My father's family is from Argentina, so I spent a lot of my childhood in Argentina. I really love the place. And my in-law family partially is from New Zealand. And to me, New Zealand is like Argentina, but everything works. So yeah, these would be the 2 choices.
Okay. And the final one is, what is your favorite guilty pleasure? And the only caveat that I have to that question is you've got to keep it clean.
I like drinking beer. I like drinking beer. I've never been really a person to try anything super hard or drugs or whatever. So I'm keeping it clean here. No, I like to drink beer. I mean, I'm German after all, right? So, and I had to reduce it a little bit. So, in the past, last year, we had like what they call a Feierabend beer almost every weeknight, right? Where you have a beer before you go home, and got it down now to 1 or 2 beers during the week. And I like to have a beer.
Yes, that's a very good guilty pleasure. I do too. The challenge with that is you always want then a second guilty pleasure afterwards, the old doner kebab, but we won't go there.
Yeah, but I'm happy to have a beer and then go home.
Okay. So I heard a rumor after the event that you're thinking of doing this next year. I don't know if that's confirmed yet, but if anyone is maybe interested to have a conversation about potentially attending or even being a speaker or sponsoring the event, where should we send them to put them in touch with you?
Probably easiest to either reach out to you and you make an introduction, or send me a message via LinkedIn. I'm unprepared. I don't have the URL for our IPD 2025 page in my head at the moment.
No worries.
But I can confirm that we are thinking about having this kind of event again in 2025. We're looking at a couple of different options. So yeah, just reach out to James or myself via LinkedIn or such platforms, and then we'll find you and you will find us.
Okay. And I'll link to Gregory's profile in the show notes for anyone that's listening that may be interested. Gregory, it's been a pleasure. Always great to catch up and always great to have a beer with you whenever we get to see each other. So do keep in touch. And if you do confirm that you're going to do it next year, I'm definitely interested to come again. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. And you're already invited for next year.
Awesome. And have a great Christmas, because this is going to go out about a week before Christmas. So
okay, cool. Yeah. Same to you and everybody who's listening. Enjoy the festive days with your families. Be safe.
Okay, everyone. That was Gregory from Apadua talking all about micro events and invite-only events as really a fantastic and innovative and cool marketing channel if you're a procurement software company, or if you're in the procurement space and just want to learn a little bit more and network with fellow professionals in a less noisy and busy atmosphere than some of the more traditional conferences out there. We will be back same time next week with our final episode of the year, doing a little bit of a year in ProcureTech roundup. Until then, take care wherever you are, stay safe, and bye for now.